Greetings again everyone. Sirui have been raising a few eyebrows this year by launching some very neat new lenses designed for video makers, two 1.33x anamorphic lenses which also have autofocus. I have tested their 40mm and 20mm models and they're both pretty fun to use, but they're both just for aps-c cropped sensor cameras though, so the next stop for them was obvious: conquer the world of full frame video making. So here we have the next level, their 50mm, 75mm and 100mm T1.8 1.33x anamorphic autofocus full frame lenses, which they have named Astra. They have also noticeably improved build quality with better manual focus control. More on that in a minute. They're going up for sale on Kickstarter a couple of days after I published this video. There's a link in the description below with an early bird price of $800 per lens or $2,400 for the set of 3 with a carry case, and they're available with a blue flaring pattern or with normal flaring. They come with a 3-year warranty and will be available for L-mount, Nikon Z or Sony E-mount cameras. I'll be reviewing the 3 lenses separately as I found they each performed a bit differently. In this video, I'll be covering the 50mm optic. I'd like to thank Sirui very much for sending me early samples of these 3 lenses for testing, although as usual, this is a totally independent review, and I should stress that these were early samples. Some of their features or problems may get tweaked or changed before the final product, and I'll try and tell you about it in the description below if they do. These lenses feature a 1.33x projection ratio, stretching your image vertically so you can stretch it back horizontally to keep better resolution for widescreen video work, as well as getting distinctive bokeh and flaring effects. It certainly seems like anamorphic lenses continue to capture the interest of video makers. They don't often have great technical image quality and sharpness due to the complex nature of their anamorphic optics, but they do offer a really interesting look. And video makers are often looking for that, exactly, looking for something to make their work stand out from the crowd. Well, why don't we look at its standout feature, autofocus, which is still something very unusual to see on an anamorphic optic and something potentially very useful. I tested this lens's autofocus pretty extensively. If you set your camera's autofocus speed to a lower level, I found level 3 out of 7 worked best on my Sony A7CR camera, then the autofocus works very nicely, travelling smoothly and locking onto your subject very happily. If you turn your camera's autofocus speed up high, for example up to 7 as I do here, then it can get a little jittery. It's not so much of an issue on this 50mm lens, but it was a problem on the 75 and 100mm optics, as I'll show you in those reviews. In fairness though, video shooters normally keep their autofocus speeds down for a smoother focus pull effect anyway, so this isn't an especially black mark as far as I'm concerned, but still, keep your video autofocus speeds down to 3 or lower for best results. The lens's build quality is quite tough and metallic, and it's obviously fairly big, as you can see. At 620 grams, or just under 1.5 pounds, this is the lightest of the 3 lenses, but it does have a little weight to it. Something nice to see is a weather sealing gasket around the metallic rear mount, as well as a USB-C port for future firmware updates. The rear aperture ring has metal grooves for follow focus rigs, and it can be set to turn smoothly for video work or with nice positive clicks in case you want to set things in place a little more firmly. Unlike Sirui's earlier aps-c versions of these lenses, you can now lock the aperture ring in or out of camera controlled mode on these new full frame lenses. On the side you also get an auto manual focus switch and an autofocus hold button. Then we get the lens's manual focus ring, which is improved over the earlier aps-c versions of the lenses. It too is made of metal and features the same deep grooves as the aperture ring for follow focus systems, but this one, as you can see, works in a linear fashion with focus markings on the side and hard stops. It's still an electronic focus system, it's just that when you switch over to manual focus mode, the lens's focus motor will simply find the place you've set it to on the focus scale. This is really helpful for manual focusing and I like the design a lot, but a weakness is that you can't easily autofocus your lens to the point that you want and then switch to manual focus without changing your focus position. A quirk that I noticed is that, when shooting as closely as 1 meter or closer to your subject, the manual focus setting does have a very slight wobble to it, picking up movements on a focus ring when you're not actually touching the lens. I expect that's a bit of a bug that may get ironed out in firmware. As you can see here, the lens does exhibit a moderate amount of focus breathing, which is a bit of a shame for a video lens. The lens does not come with a hood, and it does not feature image stabilization. It has a 72mm filter thread. Overall, I really liked the build quality and functionality of this thing. Just remember to keep your video autofocus speed set to 3 on a Sony camera, or whatever lower setting works for you on Nikon and L-mount, and the autofocus system will mostly work fine, so long as you focus on an area of your image that actually has some contrasting edges, of course. A bit of a shame about the focus breathing, though. Let's take a look at the sharpness of this lens then. My current Sony camera is a 61 megapixel A7CR, which is completely overkill for testing lenses designed for video work. So on the left you can see test pictures which are zoomed into approximately 32 megapixels, which is about the resolution for 8K video work, and on the right zoomed into approximately 8 megapixel resolution, which is all you need for 4K video. At T1.8 in the middle of the image, sharpness and contrast are quite good, but we are catching some strong magenta colour fringing here, which is visible on the 8K footage. Stop down to T2 for a touch more contrast, and at T2.8 and T4 we see excellent image quality now. Okay, let's have a look at corner image quality. This is normally quite a problem for anamorphic lenses, and this optic is no exception. There's no real corner sharpness to speak of at T1.8, T2.8 and T4 only see mild improvements. However, T5.6 and T8 are looking noticeably clearer, and T11 is sharp. So, as usual for an anamorphic lens, corner image quality is pretty poor here, although the good news is that if you stop down to T11, you can actually get some great sharpness from corner to corner if you're shooting a critical scene. Okay, let's take a look at distortion and vignetting now. Anamorphic lenses tend to project your image a little oddly, and we can indeed see a pincushion distortion pinch in the image edges here on the left and the right. Vignetting is quite strong at T1.8, at T2.8 and T4, corner brightness increases, but you'll always have some vignetting to take care of here. The lens's minimum focus distance is 50 centimeters. Close-up image quality is a little softer at T1.8 than at normal distances, with lower contrast. At T2 and T2.8 we get slight improvements, but it's at T4 that we're back to normal sharpness levels. Next, work against bright light, and this lens is deliberately designed to give you strong horizontal flaring effects, which it happily does for you. That flaring looks real nice, kind of fabulous. Obviously though, it's an acquired taste, and not every video maker will be looking for this. I'm testing out the lens with neutral flaring here. You can buy an alternative version which flares in a blue colour instead, if you prefer. Next, bokeh. This lens can get you some quite strongly out of focus backgrounds here, with a nice subtle elliptical shape to them, and I always found the character and softness of its foreground and background bokeh to look real nice. It's distinctive and helps your footage to really jump out. Longitudinal chromatic aberration is quite noticeable here though, from T1.8 even down to T4. It begins clearing up at about T8. Overall, the Sirui 50mm T1.8 anamorphic autofocus lens is enjoyable to use and can get you some really distinctive looking footage while offering autofocus that works quite well, as long as you keep the autofocus speed level down a bit on your camera's settings, that is. It has a lot of optical problems of course, perhaps slightly more than usual for an anamorphic lens, but that is simply the nature of the beast when it comes to unusual optics such as these. It's not a lens for anyone looking for a conventional cine optic with pin sharpness. Rather, it is for video makers aiming for a certain look. It's definitely not for everyone, but if you are a video maker who's foolish enough to play around with this thing for a few minutes, well, you might just find yourself getting hooked.